Thank you all so much for tuning in to another episode of Authors to Know and Their Books to Read. I'm your host, Martinique Brown, and today on the show I have Tiffinny Beard, author of Accepting an Apology That You May Never Receive. Before we get started, if you're watching this from YouTube, make sure that you go ahead and send me a friend request on Facebook under Martinique Y. Brown. If you're watching this on Facebook, make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel as well, Martinique the Storyteller. So be sure that you ask questions throughout the show as well. So Tiffinny, I really want to just have you on the show today so viewers can hear about your life story, your personal struggles, your victories, and also so they can know that there's a book out there to really just help them find closure as well as relief from adverse situations that really just might be plaguing their own life. So tell me, Tiffinny, and tell the viewers, why did you decide to write this book?
I wrote this book because we have a lot of people in life that are struggling with situations where someone did something or said something to them and they're holding on to it and that person never apologized. And they're holding on to it and it's causing chaos in that person's life because this apology they may never receive. So I wrote the book to help people deal with those apologies that they may never get and that's holding them hostage. And sometimes people are mad at a person that's deceased and gone and they're still holding on that person never apologized to them. And sometimes people just will not apologize. So I use my personal experiences in life to share how you can get over some of those things, or not so much get over them, but just be able to deal with them in a healthy manner versus in unhealthy ways.
Definitely, that's really good. So, what is your book about? I know that we are talking about accepting an apology that you may never receive, but how did you come to that title?
I had a situation I talk about in one of my chapters about sexual abuse, and I had an unfortunate, was molested at a young age, and I was in church one day, and the person who did that to me walked in church, and it just made me feel some kind of way, and I was like, I need to leave. And he's like, you can't leave this church, and I'm like, yes, I can, or I may tear up this church, so I think I need to leave. So the pastor's wife came and talked to me and I was like, no, I need to go. I can't deal with this right now. And so the pastor came, he took me into his office and he said, I talked to him, explained to him what was going on. And he said to me, you know what, daughter, you're going to have to, deal with apology. You may never get that. You may never say, I'm sorry to you. So what are you going to do with it? And at that time I was in my feelings and emotions and I never really thought about it. It wasn't until like maybe a few years later that came up in another conversation. Mm-hmm. And I said, wow, that's, profound that he said that. And guess what? I'm gonna write a book about this, about my experiences. So that's how that all came about.
Yeah. And I know that really in chapters 1 and 2, you more so talk about God as well as prayer. How did that really help you in writing the book as well as just really coming to that peace of knowing that, you may never receive an apology from the person that molested you?
Well, when I talk about God, I talk about just different ways he's revealed himself to me in my life. I always feel like he's always forsaken, he's always forsaken me. And those are so in the chapter, I write about how he showed me in his life, in my life, even though I felt like he's forsaken me, he showed me in my life that, no, I've been here all the time. Look, you've been through this and that, and I've carried you through. And so that's why it's the first chapter where I had to come in to say that, okay, I know God has carried me all this time through the molestation, through being bullied at school when I was young because I was 6 feet tall at 12 years old, through, just going the times I was in and out of prison and the times I was doing things I really should not have done. And God carried me through all of that. So that's why the first book, he hasn't forsaken me. I forsake him, he kept me, and I wasn't doing the things that I should have been doing. He gave me a lot of grace, mercy, and favor. And so that's why the first chapter is about having a higher power. And the second one is prayer, because how do you communicate with God? You know, you have to pray to him. With friends, we pick up the phone and call him. But with God, we got to get on our knees and pray to him. So, you know, those first two chapters is on the higher power. You have to have a higher power. And then you have to have prayer where you have to, you know, be able to communicate with him.
Right. Right. And I know that a major topic in the book is about forgiveness, you know, really just forgiving yourself as well as forgiving others. How did forgiveness really help you in writing chapters 3 and 4? Because you specifically talk about forgiving yourself as well as forgiving others. And I know that's a major struggle for so many people.
Yes, it's a lot of struggle to forgive yourself because, you know, it's really hard. And I had to forgive myself for just the guilt that I had when I was in and out of prison, where I had to leave my children, you know, the shame I had of, you know, people just knowing that I had been to prison, or, you know, you have a lot of guilt, shame. When I was molested by my uncle, you know, that's some guilt and shame, and you carry all kind of stuff with you, but you can't never get past it. So like I said, it goes back to prayer and asking God to, you know, deliver you from that guilt, deliver you from that shame, and, you know, make you not feel unworthy and undeserving because of the things you did or the things that happened to you in your life. So I had to work on giving myself and building myself up. You know, it's an inward thing. And the forgiving others part, that came later years. I worked on forgiving myself, you know, years ago, but the forgiving others came when I actually decided to write the book. And I kept saying, I know what I want to say, but it's not coming through. And my publisher, Courtney, was like, well, you know, gave me some tools. Well, this is how you need to write it. Just do this and then try that. And it wouldn't work. So I have this long stretch of road when I go to my daughter's house that I call it my thinking road. And as I'm driving down this road, I'm like, God, you know, tell me what I need to do, because I know what I want to say, but for some reason I can't write this.
Yeah.
Another day, like maybe a week later, as I'm driving down my same thinking road, it hit me. It's like, well, you want people to forgive, you want people to say they're sorry and apologize to you, but who do you think you owe an apology to? And I'm like, me? Nobody. I'm perfect, you know. I had to think about who do I owe apology to, and I probably owe apologies to a lot of people. But in the book, I talk about my son's father, how I called him and apologized to him for because of my personal feelings about him not being a productive part of his son's life, and how I felt like, you know, you don't deserve to be a part of his life now. You know, you wasn't there when the struggle was real, when he needed a father, and when he needed someone to make sure he ate and was clothed. And, you know, you don't get to want to walk in right now and be dad. That's, you know, at 20 something years old, that's how I felt. So I had to call him and apologize to him, because I said, when people say your name or ask about you, I don't have to say anything negative. So I'm apologizing to you for my part. I don't have to say anything negative. I don't have to downgrade you. I don't have to disregard you like you're nobody. So I had to apologize to him for that. And then another call I had to make was to a person who, you know, molested me. And I had to tell him how I really felt. We've had conversations over the years, but they were always argumentative. They was always negative. So I had to tell him how, you know, I apologized to him. And people were like, why did you apologize to him? He did something to you. I said, well, because at the end of the day, he's still my uncle. He still has my blood running through his veins. So even though he did that, I don't have to be negative towards him or anything. I don't have, like my son's father, I don't have to, when his name is mentioned, I don't have to talk bad about him. I don't have to disrespect him. I don't have to do anything. So I'm apologizing for my part, because I could just tell people I care not to talk about him, or I care not to, you know, associate with him. I didn't have to say all the negative things that I've said over the years. Yeah. So that's what I apologize to him about. And I, you know, did that apology, and, you know, it's a lot more apologies I did that I've done but those are the two that I really talk about in the book, you know, because people say you can't, why would you, forgive somebody that molested you? Well, that's a big issue because a lot of people have been sexually abused, and, you know, it's a sad thing, but I felt like that was one of the first people I needed to ask for, you know, forgiveness for my part, you know, and here's the pun about the book. Neither one of them ever apologized to me for nothing. My son's father didn't apologize. Neither did my uncle apologize to me on either one of those phone calls. So that's why you have to be able to forgive yourself and have a higher power. Because when you don't get that apology, what are you going to do?
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I feel like there's another, you just have to have in that going to somebody else that has affected your life and then asking, I guess you're not even asking them for an apology, but you're going to them and telling them that you're sorry for something that happened. And I just think that just takes such boldness as well as a humbleness to know that this is something that you needed to do in order to have that closure in your life. I know one of the things that you were telling me about before the show was that you actually considered suicide, you know, at some point. Can you tell viewers about that? Because I know you do write about that in your book. And the reason why I would like you to talk about that is because just in society, we, especially celebrities, we hear about them having all this money and all this fame. And we think that money is what can really help us to maintain our happiness, you know, and they're the ones that, you know, commit suicides. Not saying that other people don't as well, but they're in the forefront, meaning we hear about their story and we're looking at the outside appearance of them having all the materialistic things, but we're not able to see how they are internally, how they are emotionally. So can you just share with viewers what you wrote about that, specifically what you were dealing with in your life during that time?
Well, I had two instances where I contemplated suicide. One was when I was about 19 years old. My daughter was about 2. And I was just at my wit's end. I was a young mother. I had a daughter. I didn't know how I was going to take care of her. And I was just struggling in life, mentally, emotionally, financially. And I was just like, something else to give. I can't do this. Maybe I would just go to Texas, which I did. I came to San Antonio to my grandparents' house, and I knew that they would take care of my daughter. And I was like, I'm just going to, you know, leave my daughter with them because I know that they're going to take good care of her and they can provide for her and give her the things that I cannot, you know. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have a plan. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew that it was just going to end. So I was at my grandparents' house and I just packing my stuff and I was crying because I didn't want to be, you know, I didn't want to do it, but I was like, I just didn't want to carry on with the things that were going on in my life. And at that moment, you know, God says in his word that when you are tempted, he's going to send you a way out. And my daughter came in the room. I was keeping my stuff and she was like, here, Mom, look. And I'm like, look at what? And she's like, look, Mom, look. And I looked, and she had a white piece of paper in her hand, just a little piece of white paper in her hand. And I'm looking, and I'm like, what do you want me to look at? And it was just a white blank piece of paper. And something when she made me look at that, and I looked at her, and I cried, and I was like, I can't leave my baby. I can't kill myself. And whatever's going to happen, we're just going to just do it together. And that's how that one came. Then the other one time I thought about suicide was some years later, after I had my son, and me and his father was going through some things, and things just wasn't right again. Mm-hmm. And we had got into it, and I remember the police came, and they were like, what's wrong with her? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, just shoot me. Y'all just shoot me. Y'all just kill me right now. Take me out of my misery. So they took me to the psychiatric hospital, and the psychiatric doctor was like, there's nothing wrong with you. And he sent me home in a cab, and I remember I didn't have no shoes on or anything. And I got home, and I knew that my husband had kept a 9mm in the house for protection. I was like, I'm just gonna just shoot myself when I get home. My children are not there. And you know, I went home and I couldn't find the gun. I was looking all over for it and I couldn't find it. And then my cousin called. My children were at her house, and my cousin called, and she was like, I need you to come get the kids. I gotta go, and da da da, and I need you just to come. So I was like, okay. I snapped back into reality. Okay, my children need me. So let me, you know, go and get my children. So I thought about it. I never acted on it. And then one time I was asleep, like some years later, and I didn't put this in the book. And it was, again, my life was in turmoil and I was asleep, but I had prayed before I went to sleep when I was asleep. And then I woke up out of a dream because the devil was like, just go ahead and just kill yourself. It'll make it simple. Just go ahead. And I woke up just praying and praising God and asking him, like, take that away from me. I don't want to even deal with that. So, yeah, suicide is real. And it's not about necessarily having money or fame or anything. I am a counselor, and I talk to people. And, you know, we're doing these assessments. We always ask about suicide attempts or whatnot. And it's amazing how many people will tell me, yes, I've tried suicide and I've done this, and that. And I always tell them, well, I'm glad that you're here now. I'm glad there's a reason why you tried suicide 11 times and it did not work. God needed you here for something. I don't know what it is, but, you know, you have to, you know, stay the course, whatever the case may be. You know, find somebody to talk to or go find something, you know, something to do. So suicide and thoughts is really real.
Right, definitely. And I think that that's the thing that people need to constantly hear, that there is hope. You know, although your current situation, the day that you're living in might seem very gloomy, but just keep on living because it'll get better, just like it got better for you. You know, it's not coincidental that your daughter walked in, you know, and just showed you a blank piece of paper, you know. And so I think that a lot of people, we internalize these things that we're going through. And also it's a mental issue as well sometimes, where they might just be suffering from depression. So that's really major. And I think another thing, because you are a counselor, I know that in the Black culture, sometimes we don't seek that help, you know, from a counselor. So we'll go to other means and say, oh, it'll get better. I don't need to go talk to anybody about this. But that's simply not the truth. And I know just in your book, you also talk about relationships, you know, family relationships, friends, spouses, just really coming into terms with those. Can you share with the viewers just a little bit about those relationships that you discuss in accepting an apology that you may never receive?
Well, we all have friends, relationships, family members that, you know, they didn't said something, did something, and we just broken. And when those things happen, you know, it hurts the whole family as a whole. If we're cousins and something happened, now your children aren't talking to my children. I'm keeping my children from you, you keeping your children from me. And it's just, it messes with the whole family unit when you have people that are upset with some people. And some things are simple things I'm mad at. You didn't let me make the pound cake for Christmas, Thanksgiving dinner, so now I'm mad, you know. Right. And we holding on that grudges. They didn't eat my potato salad. You know, we holding on to stuff, and it's causing chaoticness. Well, I can't go hang out with this family member because this family member is going to get mad. And, you know, things like that. It causes too much chaos. And friends, you know, instead of just saying, hey, you know what, we mixed up. Next Thanksgiving, you can make the pound cake. You know,
right. Just let them make the pound cake.
Let them make the pound cake. You know, potato salad, okay. Potato salad, we didn't want you to make it because you don't put enough mayonnaise in it. Right. You know, honest and truthful with, you know, sometimes or work through it, because we keep that stuff bottled up and we mad, and it's 20 years down the line and we still mad about this pound cake 20 years ago. Now, I'm not saying that there's not to be mad and upset, because those are our true feelings, and your feelings is valid, you know. But can we work through them, especially if we're supposed to be family? Are we able to work through them? Am I able to be okay? I have an uncle, and I talk about him in the book, that he doesn't know me. He doesn't know anything about me. You know, I can count on one hand how many times I've seen him in my life, and I'm be 51 in a few days. So how do you know anything about me? That information that you know about me came from another source. Mm-hmm. So your perception of me came from somebody else, not your perception of that you have of me on your own. It came through somebody else's perception. And we have a lot of that's destroying families, you know, and friends. We have friends, and friendships break up, and now every secret that you ever told me, I'm telling everybody.
You know? And then we have social media, and so yes, we don't even try to talk to that person first. We just air our business all on social media, and that's a wrap right there.
Social media, and we put everything we wanted to say about that person on social media. But then we go to that person and say, you know what? This is how I feel. This is how I feel. Good, bad, or indifferent. Either you know, these are my feelings. Either you need to just listen and kind of accept what I have to say. Not that you agree with it, not that you anything, but hey, this is how I feel. And what do you have to say? But we'll go to social media and put everything. So now social media is judging the person you talked about, and they don't know anything about that person.
Right. That's true. And then too, when people give their opinion about something and it's really just one-sided, I'm just referring to social media, then it's adding fuel to the fire. So when people make their comments and everything, then it's like, oh yeah, he did do such and such, you know. So stay off of social media, y'all. Just go to the person and just talk to them. And like Tiffinny has been stressing, you may not get that apology for the person, but when you continue to let that stuff just stay bottled in, it begins to eat at you. And this person no longer is even thinking about what you're mad about, but you still holding on to that anger. So one of the things that I really like about your book is that you have questions at the end of each chapter. And I just think that that's really good for just taking that time for self-reflection. I know me personally, sometimes I'll read a book just to say that I got finished, you know, and because your book asks questions at the end, then it forces me to take that time to really just digest what I read and really just implement it in my own life. And I just really think that's good. Another thing that I think that is really good about the questions is this book will be so great for book clubs, because it really just takes the stress off of that book club leader. And they like, oh, I'm ready for the next 10 weeks. I don't have to do the Q&A part. So how has this book really just helped you as an individual?
It helps me a lot, because if I have and this is probably funny, if I have a problem, because I still have, you know, issues with people, I'm still working on forgiving, and I'll go back and read that chapter.
Yeah.
And read that chapter and do the questions again, and just for reinforcement for myself. You know, to reinforce myself, I'll go back and read it. Or if I'm talking to someone and they'll go and say something, and I'll say, well, did you read the chapter? Did you read my book? Did you read the chapter on friends or family or jobs? And they'll be like, yeah. I'll be like, okay, so go back and redo the chapter then. You know? So I use it as like a reference book now. Mm-hmm. A reference book. I have to go back and remember, like, okay, let me go back and see what I said and what I wrote, how I felt about that.
I know, right? Because it's kind of like a journal. You know how you go back in your journal and you just say, man, you know, I can't believe that I made it through that in my life. You know, and you do need those constant reminders when you are in a situation that's similar, to be able to go back to something and say, you know what, I can get through this, you know. So I know a lot of people might be wondering, how in the world do I order this great book that they're talking about, they actually can get it off of Amazon. And I'll just show you guys the link. Well, the link is actually in the description, but I'll show you all what it looks like. So it's only $15 and you can get it on Amazon. Like I said, the link is in the description box as well. So make sure that you go to Amazon.com and get that book, accepting the apology that you may never receive. So you can check it out and just have a better understanding of the things that we've been talking about right now. So who do you recommend purchase this book?
Everybody.
Everybody. Do you hear what you said? Everybody, you better purchase this book.
Everybody. But it's not just about female, like, oh, that's a female book. No, it's a male book as well. I have a lot of male friends and male colleagues and males that have purchased the book. Mm-hmm. And they like, wow, man, I thought this was, I was just doing it to support you, but I find it working for myself, because everybody has dealt with some type of unforgiveness or someone hasn't apologized to them or whatever. And even because I talk about jobs, I have a section in here about jobs and how jobs, they want you there to do what they want you to do, and that's it. And they may not, your boss may never tell you, hey, great job today, or thank you for doing this. And you mad, you go back to work, you want to shoot up everybody and all kind of stuff because you stressed out about your job. So I talk about that. I give experience about it, how I was fired from a job and how that, made me feel. So I talk about all those things. So those things that I talk about affect men as well as it affect women. It's not just a book for women. It's a book for everybody.
Right.
Everybody can benefit from the book.
Yeah. And I think that that's good to point out, because get this book for somebody that you do think that can really benefit from this. But also consider yourself, give it to yourself as a gift, because we all need that, that self-care, those reminders of how to really just take care of ourselves when we are in those times of anger, when we do have somebody in our life that has maybe hurt us emotionally or physically as well. So I know that you was able to talk a little bit about what you learned from this book. What do you hope people get from reading your book?
I hope they just get some clarity and some understanding. Even if they don't apologize to no one or no one apologized to them, if they just get some clarity and understanding, that they'll be able to say, okay, maybe I need to apologize to somebody, but I'm probably not, because we get that ego and that pride gets in the way. Mm-hmm. But that, forgiveness at the end of the day is not even about the other person, it's about you. You can't get on in your life with that going on. In certain situations, like I talk about my mom and my parents, and which is a really big chapter and a really big part of my life. And I talk about the unhealthy relationship that me and my mother have. And my hope is to, that if there's a mother and a daughter, or mother and son, or whoever that's going through those things, that when they read the book, that they'll do an internal check within themselves and say, okay, I need to fix this, because I don't want my relationship with my child to go this way. So I need to, try to fix it so we can be on one accord. So I just hope my book opens people's eyes and keep them open-minded to the situations that are around them, and that they can see, that they can hopefully get through and work their way through. And if you notice, after every chapter, not only is there something, the questions, I always say, if you don't understand this chapter, please go back and reread chapters 1 and 2, which is higher power and prayer, because you're going to God and the higher power and in prayer to get through whatever situation you may go through. And I had this conversation with my uncle when I first wrote the book. He says to me, I told him what the first chapter was on higher power. And so he's like, okay. Then he called me back about 3 hours later. He's like, niece, I got to tell you what the Holy Spirit told me. I said, well, Uncle, what the Holy Spirit tell you? He said, you got to take out higher power and put God. You got to let people know God sent you and this and that. And I said, okay. I said, okay, Uncle, I'm noted. So I told the publisher about it, and he said, "Well, you want me to change it?" And I said, "No, I don't want you to change it. I want you to leave it just like it is. Your power. Now, because I know people that have other religious beliefs than mine, so I'm not gonna tell nobody what to believe and what not to believe. All I can do is tell you what works for me. So what worked for me was God, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And that's what I'm going to tell you what works for me. But, hey, if a doorknob can help you get through life, then, hey, so be it. Then let that be your higher power. Who am I to tell you what to believe and not to believe? I can only share with you what works for me and what has gotten me through. So that's why I have it. It's higher power. And, to go back to your question, after each chapter, I always say, go back and read chapter 1 and 2, because before you can get over some forgiveness or deal with all the situations, you have to be all right with yourself, because like the book says, you may not get that apology you want. You may not get it.
Yeah. And I think that people deserve, to live a fulfilled life and not be holding on to things. And that's really what your book teaches. Let it go. Talk to that person if that's where you're at in your life. Or it might be even people that's deceased that you may not even get that apology from. And so I think that we have to learn how to overcome things. And I'm also a Christian in that, I know that I have a dependency on God. I know that anything that I may be struggling with, that whole acceptance from just having that piece of who I am, and when somebody hurts me, knowing that I might not get that apology. And so I constantly need God to help me to get over different things that's going on in my life. And I truly do appreciate you for writing this book, because you have to know that this book not only helped you, but it's also going to help others in the struggles, that they're going through as well. Because we always need to be filling up our toolbox with resources that's going to help us walk this life, And like I said, if you feel that there is, if this book is really good for someone that you may know, be sure that you click on that link in the description box, and you can order Tiffinny's book directly. You can also get her book on Kindle as well. But while you're ordering that book for somebody else, make sure you order it for yourself as well. So Tiffinny, I just really appreciate you for being on the show today. And I just thank you for who you are. Thank you for your transparency as well, because you really talk about some subjects that a lot of people don't like to talk about because they want their past to just remain the past and be done with it, and that's fine as well. But you've decided that you wanted to write something that's going to help others. So I really do appreciate you for coming on the show and sharing your story.
Well, thank you for having me on the show.
You're welcome. So, guys, I just want to let you know, if you would like to be a guest on the show, you are welcome to. Let me go ahead and tell you all about it, how you can do that as well.